What if I told you these aren't just ordinary 1-cent coins? At first glance, they may look like simple pennies, coins most people would overlook, toss into a jar, or forget in their pocket change. But the truth is these small pieces of copper hold something far greater than just 1 cent of value. They carry a piece of American history, where every scratch, every detail, and every design tells a story of the United States, its economic journey, its craftsmanship, and sometimes even hidden minting errors that can turn an ordinary coin into something truly valuable. Today, we are taking a closer look at 4 fascinating 1-cent coins, and one of them stands out because on the reverse side there's a noticeable scratch or possible error mark that could mean much more than it appears. Is it simply damage? Or could it be a rare feature that gives this coin special significance? For collectors, history lovers, and anyone curious about hidden treasures, this is what makes coin hunting so exciting. Because these are not just coins, they are tiny time capsules of American heritage, each with a story waiting to be uncovered. So stay with me as we examine these 4 1-cent coins, break down their details, and find out if one of them could be worth far more than its face value. Let's dive in. Welcome back to my channel Coin Vault USA, where we explore not just coins, but the hidden stories, the history, and the surprising value behind them. Today, we are starting with one of the most iconic and widely recognized coins in the United States, the 1987 Lincoln penny, a 1-cent coin that may look ordinary at first glance, but holds far more significance than most people realize. Now, when people think about pennies, they often think of something small, something almost worthless in today's economy. Many people ignore them, leave them behind, or toss them into jars without a second thought. But what if I told you that some of these pennies, yes, even something as common as a 1987 Lincoln cent, can actually carry real historical value and, in certain cases, surprising monetary worth? To truly understand this coin, we have to go back to the origins of the Lincoln penny itself. First introduced in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln, becoming the first US coin to feature a real historical figure. And over time it evolved through multiple design phases, including the famous Lincoln Memorial reverse introduced in 1959, which is exactly the series our 1987 coin belongs to, representing a long-standing era of American coinage that lasted nearly 5 decades. By 1987, the composition of the penny had already changed due to rising copper costs, shifting to a zinc core with a thin copper coating, making it lighter yet visually similar to older coins. A small detail that many overlook, but one that plays a role in durability, wear, and even collector interest over time. Now here's where things begin to get more interesting, because even though billions of these coins were minted, not every 1987 penny is the same. Small variations, mint marks like D for Denver or no mint mark for Philadelphia, and most importantly, condition, all play a huge role in determining value. And this is where collectors start paying close attention, because a coin that looks average to one person might actually be a hidden gem to another. In circulated condition, yes, the coin is usually just worth 1 cent, but when you move into higher grades, coins that are uncirculated, with sharp details, clean surfaces, and strong luster, the value starts to rise, sometimes reaching a few dollars, sometimes more depending on demand. But that's only the beginning of the story, because the real excitement in coin collecting comes from the unexpected, from the rare errors and unusual characteristics that slip through the minting process. And this is exactly what makes coins like the 1987 Lincoln penny worth a second look. For example, double die errors, where the design appears slightly duplicated, or off-center strikes, where the coin design is not perfectly aligned, or even surface anomalies that may look like simple scratches, but could actually be part of the minting process. These are the details that can transform a simple coin into something much more valuable. And yes, there have been cases where such coins, depending on their uniqueness and condition, have reached values of $50, $100, or even higher in collector markets. And that's the part that surprises most people, because they never expect something so small, Something so common, to hold that kind of potential. And let me say that again, because it's important to understand this clearly. A 1987 Lincoln penny, a coin most people would ignore, throw away, or never even notice, can sometimes be worth far more than its face value. Sometimes just a little more, but in rare cases, significantly more. And that possibility is what drives collectors. It's what makes people search through jars, check old collections, and examine every detail under light, because you never know what you might find. This is not just about money, it's about discovery, about understanding history in a physical form, something you can hold in your hand, something that has traveled through time, passed from one person to another, carrying its story silently. For many Americans, the Lincoln penny is more than just currency. It's a symbol, a connection to the past, a reminder of a leader who shaped the nation, and a reflection of how even the smallest denomination has a role in the bigger picture of the economy and culture. And coins like the 1987 Lincoln cent continue that legacy, quietly existing in circulation while also holding a place in collections, auctions, and historical discussions. When you look closely at this coin, you're not just seeing metal, you're seeing craftsmanship, design, and decades of history combined into something simple yet meaningful. Now, as we continue examining this specific 1987 penny, I want you to focus on the fine details. Look at the shine, the texture, the edges, and especially any unusual marks, because sometimes what looks like a flaw might actually be the most valuable feature of the coin, especially in cases where minting pressure, die wear, or mechanical shifts create patterns that are not meant to be there. And these are the things collectors actively search for. The reverse side, in particular, can reveal a lot, from the clarity of the Lincoln memorial to any irregular lines or marks that stand out. And if there is a visible scratch-like feature, the key question becomes whether it happened after circulation or during the minting process, because that difference alone can completely change the value of the coin. And this is where knowledge becomes power, because a trained eye can spot the difference between damage and a genuine mint error. And that's exactly what separates casual holders from serious collectors. It's the attention to detail, the patience, and the curiosity to look beyond the obvious. As you keep watching, we are going to break this down step by step, analyze what we see, and try to understand whether this particular coin has something special about it or not, because sometimes the answer is simple, and sometimes it's surprisingly valuable. So before you dismiss this coin as just another penny, take a moment to think about its journey, where it has been, how many hands it has passed through, and what it might be hiding beneath its surface. Because in the world of coin collecting, the smallest detail can make the biggest difference, and the most ordinary coin can turn into an extraordinary find. And who knows, maybe this 1987 Lincoln penny we are looking at right now is not as ordinary as it seems. Maybe it carries a detail that changes everything. And that's exactly what we are here to find out as we continue this exploration together. As we continue taking a deeper look at this 1987 Lincoln penny, something important starts to become clear. This coin is not about what it seems on the surface. It's about what you're able to notice beyond it. Because in the world of coin collecting, the difference between an ordinary coin and a valuable one is often hidden in the smallest, almost invisible details. And this is exactly where most people miss the opportunity. Think about it for a moment. How many times have you come across pennies and ignored them completely? How many times have you received change and never even looked at it twice? That's exactly why coins like this continue to circulate unnoticed, even when they might carry features that collectors are actively searching for. Now, when we focus specifically on the 1987 Lincoln penny, one of the first things serious collectors look at is the overall condition of the coin. Condition is everything. A coin that has been heavily circulated will show signs of wear, faded details, dull surfaces, scratches, and a lack of shine. But when a coin is preserved in better condition, with clear lines, strong luster, and minimal marks, it immediately becomes more desirable. And this is where grading comes into play. Coin grading is a standardized way of determining a coin's condition. usually measured on a scale from 1 to 70. The closer a coin is to 70, the more perfect it is considered. For a 1987 penny, reaching a high grade like MS65 or above can significantly increase its value. Not because it's rare in quantity, but because it's rare in condition. That's a key difference many beginners don't understand. It's not always about how many coins exist. It's about how many exist in excellent condition. Now let's take a closer look at the surface of this coin, because this is where things get even more interesting. When light hits the coin at different angles, you might start noticing variations, tiny lines, marks, or textures that seem unusual. To an untrained eye, these might look like simple scratches or damage. But to a collector, they raise an important question. Was this caused after the coin was minted? Or did it happen during the minting process? Because if it happened during minting, that changes everything. Mint errors are one of the most exciting aspects of coin collecting. These are mistakes that occur during production, sometimes due to misaligned dies or mechanical faults in the minting process. And when such errors appear on a coin, they make it unique. And uniqueness is what drives value now. In the case of this 1987 penny, the mark on the reverse side becomes the center of attention. At first, it may look like an ordinary scratch, something that happened after years of use. But if we slow down and really analyze it, we have to consider other possibilities. Could it be a die crack? Could it be a strike-through error? Could it be something that happened during production rather than after? These are the kinds of questions collectors ask, because the answer can mean the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and a coin worth something far greater. And this is exactly why patience is so important in this field. You observe, you compare, and you learn. Now another detail that often gets overlooked is the mint mark. Philadelphia coins usually have no mint mark, while Denver coins carry a small d. While both are common, certain variations in strike quality and preservation can still influence value. Luster refers to the way light reflects off the surface of the coin, and it's one of the first things experienced collectors notice. A coin with strong, original luster has a kind of brightness and energy to it that's hard to ignore. It almost feels alive compared to a dull, worn-out coin. When a 1987 penny retains this luster, especially in uncirculated condition, it becomes far more attractive in the eyes of collectors, and with attractiveness comes demand, and with demand comes value. This chain reaction is what drives the coin market. But let's go a little deeper, because there's something else that makes coins like this so fascinating. It's the unpray point too. Coins from the same year, same mint, and same design can have completely different values, simply because of small differences in condition or features. One might be worth a cent, while the other could be worth significantly more. Now imagine this scenario. Someone finds a jar of old coins, maybe something passed down through family, or something collected over years without much thought. Inside that jar could be dozens, even hundreds of pennies just like this one. Most people would see them as loose change, but a collector sees something else entirely: opportunity. An opportunity to discover something rare, an opportunity to find value where others see none. And that's exactly what we are doing here. We are not just looking at a coin, we are investigating it. We are asking questions. We are trying to understand whether this specific 1987 Lincoln penny has something unique about it, something that separates it from the billions of others that were produced. Because sometimes all it takes is one detail, 0.1 mark, 0.1 variation. And if you think this 1987 penny was interesting, the next one might surprise you even more. So don't go anywhere, because what we are about to look at next could change the way you see pennies forever. Let's move on to the second coin. And now we move deeper into our exploration with the second coin in this collection. And this one may appear simple at first, but the more you look at it, the more it starts to reveal. This is the 1996 D Lincoln penny, a 1-cent coin that has quietly existed in circulation for years, passing through countless hands, unnoticed, unexamined, and often underestimated. But today, we are not going to overlook it. We are going to break it down, detail by detail, and understand Why even a coin like this can carry more value than most people ever imagine. Now when you first look at this coin, nothing immediately stands out. It doesn't shine like silver. It doesn't carry a large denomination. And it doesn't demand attention. But that's exactly what makes it interesting. Because in the world of coin collecting, the most valuable discoveries often come from the coins that people ignore the most. The year 1996 places this coin in a mature phase of the Lincoln Memorial Series, a design that had already become deeply rooted in American culture. By this time, the US Mint had perfected its production techniques, producing coins in massive quantities. Yet even in such controlled systems, perfection is never guaranteed. Small variations, tiny imperfections, and subtle differences still occur, and those are the details that collectors search for. This particular coin carries the D Mint mark, meaning it was struck at the Denver Mint. Millions of these coins were produced there. But again, quantity does not eliminate uniqueness, because once these coins leave the mint, their journey begins. And no two coins experience the exact same path. Some coins remain protected, stored away in collections, untouched by daily use. Others go through years of circulation, collecting marks, scratches, and signs of wear. And this is where things start to get really interesting with this specific 1996 D penny. Because if you turn this coin over and focus on the reverse side, you'll notice something unusual, visible scratches or rough marks that affect the clarity of the design. The Lincoln Memorial doesn't appear as sharp or clean as it should. And at first glance, most people would immediately assume one thing: this coin is damaged. And that's where the biggest mistake happens. Because many people see scratches and instantly think the coin has lost its value. They ignore it, they discard it, or they never take the time to look deeper. But in reality, not all marks are the same. And not all damage is truly damage. Some of these marks could be the result of circulation. Yes, but in certain cases, they could also be linked to the minting process itself. And if that's the case, then what you're looking at is not just wear. It could be a feature. And features like that can change everything. In coin collecting, there is a fine line between damage and mint error. And understanding. That difference is what separates casual observers from serious collectors. A scratch caused after the coin left the mint usually reduces value, but a mark created during the minting process can actually increase it. And this is where attention to detail becomes powerful. Now imagine this: a coin that most people would ignore because of visible scratches could actually be worth more than a clean-looking coin, simply because those marks have a different origin. That idea alone completely changes how you look at coins. And let's talk about value again, because this is where things become even more surprising. In general circulation, a 1996 D Lincoln penny is worth 1 cent. In slightly better condition, it may reach a few dollars. In high-grade uncirculated condition, it can go even higher. But when you introduce unusual features, especially ones that could be linked to minting irregularities, the value can jump significantly. There have been cases where coins with unique surface characteristics, unusual strike patterns, or rare visual features have reached values of $20, $50, even $100 or more depending on collector interest. And let me make this very clear, because this is the key point. A coin with scratches is not always a worthless coin. In fact, in some cases, those scratches can be the very reason the coin becomes valuable. Yes, valuable. And this is exactly why you should never ignore a coin just because it doesn't look perfect. Because perfection is not always what collectors are looking for. Sometimes, it's the imperfection that tells the story. Sometimes, it's the flaw that creates the value. Now when we analyze this specific coin further, we need to consider multiple possibilities. Are these scratches random? Are they deep or shallow? Do they follow a pattern? Do they cut across the design in a way that suggests post-mint damage? Or do they blend into the surface in a way that might indicate something else? These questions matter, because each answer moves us closer to understanding what we are really looking at. And this is where patience becomes important. You don't rush to judge the coin. You study it. You observe it under light. You compare it with known examples. Because sometimes, the truth is not obvious at first glance. And that's exactly what makes this process so engaging. Now think about the mindset shift here. Instead of seeing a scratched coin as something negative, you start seeing it as something worth investigating. Something that might carry a hidden detail. Something that might actually stand out in a collection. And that shift, that change in perspective, is what turns an ordinary viewer into a serious collector. Because now, every coin becomes a possibility. Every mark becomes a clue. Every detail becomes important. And this 1996D Lincoln penny is a perfect example of that idea. It teaches you not to judge too quickly. It teaches you to look deeper. It teaches you that value is not always visible at first glance. And most importantly, it shows you that even the smallest coin can hold a story that most people never take the time to understand. Now as we move forward, keep this in mind. This coin may not look perfect. It may not shine the brightest. And it may not appear rare at first. But the details it carries make it worth attention, worth analysis, and possibly worth more than expected. And that's exactly why coins like this continue to surprise people. Because they hide their true potential behind an ordinary appearance. So before you ever decide to ignore a coin because of scratches or marks, remember this moment. Remember that those same marks could be the reason someone else sees value, where you don't. And that's what makes all the difference. Now as we reach the end of this part, there's something even more exciting ahead. Because the next coin we are about to explore might push this idea even further. It might not just challenge what you think about scratches or condition. It might completely change how you understand value itself. So stay with me. Because the third coin in this lineup could reveal something even more surprising. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Now as we move forward in this journey, it's time to focus on the third coin in this lineup. And this one brings a completely different kind of perspective, a different kind of energy, and a new level of understanding when it comes to value and history. This is the 1997D Lincoln penny, a 1-cent coin that, like many others, exists quietly in circulation, often ignored, often underestimated, yet holding layers of meaning that most people never take the time to uncover. And that is exactly what we are going to do here. We are going to go beyond the surface and truly understand what makes this coin important. The year 1997 places this coin in a late stage of the Lincoln Memorial Series, a design that had already become deeply embedded in American identity, something that generations of people had grown up seeing, using, and trusting, and yet despite its familiarity, very few people actually stop and study it in detail, which is exactly why opportunities still exist within coins like this. The D Mint mark on this coin tells us that it was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the primary coin production facilities in the United States, known for producing large volumes of coins every year, and in 1997, millions upon millions of these pennies were struck and released into circulation, which at first might make it seem like this coin has no rarity at all. But that assumption is where most people go wrong, because rarity is not always about numbers. Sometimes it is about condition, sometimes it is about detail, and sometimes it is about something completely unexpected. When we begin to analyze the 1997D Lincoln penny, the first thing we notice is its familiar structure, the portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse. Strong, recognizable, unchanged for decades. And on the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial, a design that symbolized stability and continuity in American coinage. But beyond this familiar appearance lies a deeper story, one that connects not just to the design, but to the materials, the production methods, and the journey of the coin itself. Like other pennies minted after 1982, the 1997D is composed primarily of zinc with a thin copper plating, a change that was made due to the rising cost of copper. And while this may seem like a simple economic adjustment, it actually has a long-term impact on how these coins age, how they wear, and how they are evaluated by collectors. Because zinc ore coins behave differently compared to older solid copper coins. They can show different types of surface changes, different reactions to environmental conditions, and different patterns of wear, all of which play a role in determining value over time. Now let's talk about value, because this is where interest really begins to grow in everyday circulation. A 1997D Lincoln penny is worth exactly 1 cent. And for most people, That is all it will ever be. But once again, that is only the surface level of understanding. Because in the world of coin collecting, value is determined by much more than face value. It is influenced by condition, by rarity in high grades, by collector demand, and by the presence of unique features or errors. A typical circulated 1997D penny may remain at 1 cent, but an uncirculated example, one that has been preserved carefully, with strong luster, minimal marks, and clear details, can reach values of $1 to $3, sometimes higher depending on the exact grade. And when you move into higher grade coins, those rated MS65 or above, the value can increase even further, sometimes reaching $10, $15, or more in certain markets. And while those numbers may not seem extreme, they represent a significant increase from the coin's original value. And more importantly, they demonstrate how condition alone can transform a coin's worth. But once again, we are only scratching the surface, because the true potential of coins like the 1997D Lincoln penny lies in the unexpected, in the small details that most people overlook, in the variations that occur during the minting process, and in the unique characteristics that set one coin apart from another. Mint errors, for example, are one of the most exciting aspects of coin collecting. These are the unintended results of the minting process, caused by mechanical issues, die wear, misalignment, or pressure inconsistencies. And when such errors appear on a coin, they create something unique, something that collectors actively search for. In the case of the 1997D penny, collectors often examine the lettering, the date, the mint mark, and the overall alignment of the design, looking for signs of doubling, off-center strikes, or unusual surface features that do not match standard production patterns. And when such features are confirmed as genuine mint errors, the value of the coin can increase dramatically, sometimes reaching $50, $100, or even higher depending on rarity and demand. Now consider this for a moment. A coin that most people would ignore, a coin that might sit unnoticed in a jar or pass through countless transactions, could actually hold a value far beyond its face value, simply because of a small detail, a small variation, or a small imperfection that occurred at the moment it was created. And that idea is what makes coin collecting so powerful. It transforms the ordinary into something meaningful. It turns everyday objects into historical artifacts, and it creates opportunities where most people see none. In the United States, the value of coins like the 1997D Lincoln penny is not just determined by collectors alone. It is influenced by a broader market that includes dealers, auctions, and grading services, all of which contribute to establishing value based on condition, rarity, and demand. And this is why the same coin can have different values in different contexts. In one city, it may be seen as common, while in another, it may attract interest due to its condition or features. And this variation in perception is what creates movement in the market. Understanding how to identify value in a coin like this requires attention, patience, and a willingness to look beyond the obvious. It means examining the coin under proper lighting, observing the surface for consistency, checking the edges for irregularities, and comparing the coin with known standards. And while this may sound complex, it becomes easier with practice, and over time, the ability to recognize valuable details becomes almost instinctive. The key is not to rush, not to assume, and not to ignore, because every coin has the potential to teach you something, and every detail has the potential to matter. Now, as we bring our focus back to this specific 1997D Lincoln penny, it becomes clear that its value is not fixed. It is not limited to 1 cent. It is not defined by its appearance alone. It is shaped by how it is understood, how it is evaluated, and how it is presented within the collector's market. And that is what makes this coin worth discussing, worth analyzing, and worth paying attention to. Because even though it may appear simple, it carries the same potential as any other coin to surprise you. And that brings us to an important realization, something that connects all the coins we have seen so far. Value is not always obvious, it is not always visible, and it is not always immediate. Sometimes it takes time, knowledge, and careful observation to uncover it. And that is exactly what we are doing here, step by step, coin by coin. building an understanding that goes beyond the surface. Now, as we move closer to the next part of this journey, keep this thought in mind. If coins like this can hold hidden value, if small details can create big differences, then what about the next coin? What if the next one carries something even more unusual? Something even more valuable? Something that takes everything we have discussed so far and pushes it to another level? Because that is exactly what we are about to explore next. And trust me, you will want to see what comes after this. Stay with me, because the fourth coin might just change everything. Now, as we reach the final coin in this entire journey, it's important to understand that this is not just another example in a series. This is actually the coin that brings everything together. Everything we've discussed so far about condition, history, value, perception, and hidden potential, all of it connects here in this final piece. And this is the 1998 D Lincoln penny. At first glance, this coin does not try to impress anyone. It does not shine like a newly minted coin. It does not show perfect clarity. And it does not immediately give the impression of something valuable. In fact, for most people, it might even look like a very common, slightly damaged penny that has been through circulation for years. But that is exactly where the misunderstanding begins, because in coin collecting, what looks ordinary on the surface often carries deeper meaning underneath. When you hold or observe this 1998 D Lincoln penny, the first thing you notice is the condition of the front surface. It is not clean or glossy. Instead, it appears dull, slightly worn, and in many cases, you may also notice small black dots or dark marks scattered across different parts of the coin, especially near the portrait of Abraham Lincoln and around the edges of the design. And at this point, most untrained eyes immediately assume that the coin is damaged, maybe stained, maybe corroded, or simply not worth attention. But this reaction is exactly what separates casual viewers from serious collectors. Because in numismatics, appearance alone does not define value. This coin belongs to the Denver Mint, indicated by the D Mint mark, and it was produced during a period when the United States Mint was striking billions of pennies annually, making it part of a highly common circulation series. But even within high production numbers, each coin still carries its own individual journey, because once a coin leaves the mint, it enters real-world circulation, and from that moment, no two coins experience the same path. Some remain relatively clean in storage or collections, while others pass through years of handling, exposure, and environmental changes. And that difference in life experience is what creates variation in appearance. Now, to understand this coin properly, we also need to understand its material composition, because like other modern pennies minted after 1982, the 1998 D Lincoln penny is made primarily of zinc with a thin copper coating on the outside. And this structure plays a very important role in how the coin ages over time, because unlike solid copper coins from earlier decades, zinc ore coins tend to react differently when exposed to air, moisture, and handling, which can lead to surface spotting, discoloration, or the formation of small marks that appear as black dots or uneven textures. And while many people instantly categorize these changes as damage, collectors often study them more carefully to understand whether they are environmental effects or something more significant. And this is where perception becomes extremely important, because what one person sees as a damaged coin, another person may see as a coin with character, and in some cases, even potential value. The black dots and surface marks on this coin may reduce its appeal in terms of visual perfection, but they also create questions that need to be answered. Are these marks purely from circulation? Or could they be related to the way the coin was struck or stored under certain conditions? Because if there is any possibility of mint-related influence, then the coin moves into a completely different category of interest. Now let's talk about value in a more realistic way, because this is where expectations need to be properly understood. In normal circulated condition, a 1998 D Lincoln penny is worth exactly 1 cent, and this is the most common reality for the majority of these coins. However, when you move into uncirculated or higher grade conditions, where the coin has been preserved with minimal wear and better surface quality, the value can increase to around $1 to $3, sometimes slightly more depending on collector demand and grading quality. and when coins are professionally graded at higher levels, especially those that maintain strong original luster and sharp details. They can reach values of $10, $20, or in some cases even higher in specific collector markets. But the real interest in coins like this does not always come from perfect examples. It often comes from unusual ones, because collectors are always looking for something that stands out, something that breaks the normal pattern, something that looks different from standard production coins. This is where surface marks, toning, and irregular patterns become important, because if they are verified as part of minting variations or natural aging processes that create unique appearance, they can attract attention from niche collectors, and in such cases, coins like this have been known to reach values ranging from $25, $50, and occasionally even higher depending on rarity and demand at the time. And this is where the mindset of collecting becomes very important, because it is not just about looking at a coin and deciding its worth instantly. It is about observing it, analyzing it, and understanding the possibilities behind it. Many people make the mistake of ignoring coins like this simply because they do not look perfect, but in reality, imperfection is not always a negative factor. Sometimes it is exactly what creates uniqueness. And uniqueness is one of the strongest drivers of value in the collector's market. When you examine this coin closely, every detail starts to matter. The texture of the surface, the alignment of the design, the clarity of the lettering, the condition of Lincoln's portrait, and even the way light reflects off different areas of the coin. All of these elements combine to give you a complete understanding of its condition. And in professional coin evaluation, nothing is ignored, because even the smallest detail can sometimes indicate something significant. And this is exactly why coins like the 1998 Lincoln penny continue to remain relevant in discussions about modern coin collecting, because they represent more than just currency. They represent the idea that value is not always obvious, and that sometimes what appears ordinary can still hold interest when viewed from the right perspective. Now, as we reach the conclusion of this coin, it is important to step back and look at the bigger picture, because this coin completes a sequence, a journey through different Lincoln pennies, each showing a different aspect of condition, value, and perception. And together they form a complete understanding of how coins should be viewed, not just as money, but as historical objects that carry variation, meaning, and potential. And now, as we finish this final coin, there is one important thing left to do, because understanding coins is not just about watching them. It is about learning how to recognize them in real life. And that brings us to the most important part of this entire video. If you have been watching this journey from the beginning, then you already know that coins are not just simple objects. They are part of a system, part of history, and sometimes part of hidden opportunity. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, if you found value in understanding these details, and if you want to continue learning more about coins, their history, their errors, and their hidden worth, then make sure you subscribe to the channel. Because here, we don't just look at coins casually. We analyze them deeply, we break down their details, and we uncover the things that most people never notice. This channel is built for people who are curious, for people who want to learn, and for people who want to see value where others don't. So if that sounds like you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Stay connected and become part of a growing community that explores the hidden world of coins together. And remember, the next time you see a penny, don't just ignore it, because sometimes the smallest coin can carry the biggest surprise.